conversations prior to us going on the air, and being as we're late this morning, we should just not waste all of it. That's why we're
We're
live,
live.
and we are Mikey and Vinnie.
He's
He's
New York.
Mike
He's
and
New York
Mike.
Vinny.
Can I tell you, man? We've been doing this a long time.
Anyway, that's New York Vinny. He's in the state of Washington. I'm Michael Knight. I'm in the state of California, and you are in your state of mind wherever you are in the world. We appreciate
Yes,
you joining us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at about this time. Although we're late today.
we're always, but see, see that's the great thing about being older. When you're younger, you got to be there at 10:10 on the button. When you get older, people realize that you just don't get there on time. It's not a sign of disrespect. It's just you got to go to the bathroom. You have to blow your nose. I mean, there's a million things you got to. You got to get your hearing aid in. You
I
got to get
blew.
your
I,
shoes on. Your knee brace go. I mean,
I
you
blew
know,
my
it takes.
nose. And the reason I cut the short cut the show briefly, quick at the end of last night's show or Monday's show, is because I had to urinate like a racehorse, as they say in the business, and there was no time. There was no time to explain why. I just had to go in all the right ways.
Mikey, you got to go. You got to go. There's no see. That's the one about doing this. Don't have to be embarrassed about the things. You got to go. You got to go. You get up and go. I hold a spot
And
for you if you want to come back. You don't want to come back. That's okay. I
had
figure
we
something's going on.
had we been broadcasting live over the great city of Seattle, I just would have I would have held up the P. I have a sign that just has a P on it, and then run out of the studio, and Vinny would have covered for me. He would have told a story about the Mariners or something. If not the
Something.
Mariners, he would have maybe the Dead End Kids. A member.
I would have come up with some kind of story because that's why we do this because we have 10 million stories and only 1 million minutes to tell them.
And if you want to get, if you think, well, we don't have anything to talk about today, I'll just ask Vinny what route he took when he went to school in the 6th grade, and his answer would be this.
Well, I used to take in the 6th grade. I split because I went to two schools in the 6th grade. So the first route
See,
I took was
see,
down Northern Boulevard. I used to take the Queens Transit bus because I was going to PS 152. So I used to have to get on that bus in the morning. And oh man, that bus was like full of the gloomiest people. I was the only one from that far away that went to PS 152, and the bus went down Northern Boulevard to 51st Street. My school was on 61st Street. So I went almost to the end of the line. And I'm telling you, it was some of the gloomiest people you ever want to see. Then halfway through the year, they transferred me. They found out that I didn't live in the district. And which I had a famous thing to. So anyway, they transferred me to IS 145 in 6th grade, halfway through a little before halfway, about a quarter of the way through the year, and that was within walking distance of my house, so I could walk to school. And then you'd walk and you'd pass like Gus's Delicatessen, you'd pass the Chinese Laundry. You always say hi to the guy because he had a cute daughter. I liked her. Past the firehouse where my cousin Frankie trained most of the guys in the firehouse, so they always knew me. They was always talk, hey Vinny, what's happening? Hey guys, Then you had the hardware store, the toy store, and then you stopped in Marty and Annie's candy store before you went across the street and went to school.
ooh, a good last stop, the candy store.
Marty and Andy's was the place to. Marty and Annie, their candy store in the corner of 80th and Northern was the place to stop. That's where I met Gene Simmons. He used to assemble papers, and Marty and Annie's, he was one of the older kids that hung out there.
Can you imagine that they made the papers in those days? They had the sections had to be put together.
Right,
The paper was not ready to deliver.
right. Sunday papers, you got them. You got everything except the main section, the news section, on on Thursday. So you had to assemble it so that on Saturday night, around midnight, the first edition would come out, and you assemble the first edition because there were always people that would come down to the candy store, and that was socialization in those days. You know, your
Yeah.
father sent you down to the candy store for the paper at 9 o'clock at night, and you better get back here right away, or I'll kick your ass.
Because he
Yeah.
knew there were distractions within that candy store that could delay a young man on his
Well, that's where you
duty.
learned your criminality. That's where you learned your socialization. That's where you learned, all the things that your parents tried not to teach you. You learned as soon as you got to the candy store and hung out with other kids whose parents also tried to teach them not to teach them that kind of stuff.
Well, you can just explain to them that no one has to teach you these things. You're going to pick it up sooner or later. You might as well get the word from professionals who have
Right.
been trained properly.
And if you did it right, you would go in back of the candy store. There was two little other stores in that building. It was, like in New York, you have a apartment building, stores on the first floor, and an apartment building up top with 3 or 4 stories on it. And in that first store was the paper office. And so if you were a home carrier, if you were a paper boy, you went to you would go to that office to pick up your papers. And the guy who ran the office at that time, the Long Island Star Journal was Mr. C, Mr.
Mr.
Culmer.
C. Oh.
But you always called the guy by Mr. C. All these paper offices had Mr. C, Mr. B, Mr. A. Everybody called him Mr. whatever. And that was another trip unto itself, because that was, just 25 or 30 kids thrown together to do paper routes. And, you had the bicycle and you had the bag that you put on front of the bicycle. Or if you had a really big route, like I had on the other side of Northern Boulevard on 82nd Street, you stole a shopping cart and you put them all in the shopping cart.
How was your arm for tossing it up on the stoop?
Well, it was good. My first route I had private houses. And those were good tossing arms. Those I could go down the street and boom, 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 boom.
You had the backhanded flip down.
Yeah, you kind of did it like this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
like a frisbee.
you could throw it like that, but your easier shot was to just flip it like that.
The
like
frisbee delivery. Card. Yeah. Okay.
Then I got a better route because Mr. C liked me, and he put me across the street from the paper store, actually. Now, I don't know if he did it really because he liked me or he wanted to watch me. Couldn't quite figure that out. But
you knew he had reason to like you and
Mr. C didn't ever do anything without a reason. And Mr. C, and so he put me on this paper route that was only 3 blocks long, but it was all apartment buildings.
Well, that's a tough one.
So you'd go into a building, and half the people in the building subscribe, so you'd spend time in the building, boom, 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 putting down the papers. It was great in the winter because you weren't out driving through the snow on your bicycle. You were inside buildings. And you had a master key to the doors.
I'm surprised how many people in Queens took along the Long Island newspaper.
Well, it was called at first it was the Long Island Star Journal, but it wasn't a Long Island newspaper. It was a Queens-centric newspaper. They had another newspaper that was owned by the same people called the Long Island Press. And that was the Long Island newspaper. The Star Journal was down in Queens Plaza, and they ceased publication probably around 1968. There was a big newspaper strike in New York.
Yes.
In 68, 69, something like that. And not every paper survived it. In fact, many papers. That was when the Herald Tribune, the Telegram, the World Telegram, and the Journal American merged and became one paper, the World Journal Tribune. And that lasted about 1.5 years or so, 2 years, and then they ceased publication. So you were basically left after that with 3 newspapers.
Did they have a Queens-based Jimmy Breslin equivalent? Or did they have...
they had a guy. Well, it's funny that you mentioned him. They had a guy named Walter Kaner. And Walter Kaner was a combination of Jimmy Breslin and Herb Caen. He
That's a
was
good
kind of,
combination. That's
yeah, he was kind of both. Jimmy only, wrote long form columns about people.
people, events,
Walter
situations.
Walter would write about some long form columns, but then he'd also do a ton of three, like he had probably had 2 3-dot columns, as they
Right.
called them in those days, because it was an item, dot, 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 another item, dot, dot, dot. And Kaner would do a lot of, like, on a Thursday night or a Friday night. I remember he would write about who was appearing where,
Oh
and,
yeah.
and little gossip tidbits about them. And later I got it, that he was writing about this because he got into all these places for free.
Of course.
It was the best gig in the world. He could
He
go to the
saw the
San
four
Suzanne.
he saw the Four Seasons more than you did.
Exactly. And it was funny because when I was in my coma, now going on 6 years ago, one of the extended dreams that I had, one of the, I call them now story arcs that
Yeah.
happened in the coma. It was like I had these different stories that were going on. And one of them involved Walter Kaner, believe it or not.
Good God.
Somehow his memory, his thought, his thing got into my mind. And who knows how that happens? I mean, it's a mystery of the brain.
Well, it got
But
filed away. It just got
I
filed
had
away.
this long, protracted story arc in my dream about Walter Kaner and being stuck in a garage on Long Island. And I mean, it still fascinates me today how detailed and lifelike these dreams were. But this dream in particular took place over Christmas.
Oh.
And I mean, it was detailed down to, I was hiding in this garage. That used to be one of the tow garages for the highways on Long Island. This place, Charlie's, and I was stuck up in a loft looking at all the action. And Walter Kaner used to come in all the time, and that's how I would get my news of what was going on, because Kaner would talk to the guy in the garage.
And you got to overhear him.
And I got to overhear him. And
In
I
a
actually got
coma.
to,
Remember, this is your brain in a coma, entertaining you and keeping you awake
alive.
and keeping. That's right, keeping you interested in life and running through the things you knew. Let's get this brain working. What do you
Yeah,
know, Vinny? What do you got filed away in here? Let's take a look. You know Walter Kaner? Ever heard of this guy? Oh yeah. And okay, we're going to put him in your dream tonight.
that's exactly, probably. I mean, you probably just explained it better than any scientist could. My brain was recovering from this trauma, and how it was recovering was picking out things that had happened in my past and reliving them, actually
Yeah.
giving my, keeping my brain active, not letting it go to sleep.
What did you do the day you woke up? Do you recall?
I thought that all the dreams I had was real.
Well,
I
maybe
was
they were.
surprised to be in a bed and I couldn't move. They had me tied into the bed so that I guess I couldn't get up and run out of bed or whatever. Not that I was going anywhere, because I had, but I remember I tried to talk. My sister was there. My sister Stacy was there, if I remember right. And I tried to talk to her and I couldn't, because I had
You had the trach.
the trach tube. And I couldn't talk. And I started to panic.
Oh yeah, that's why they tie you down.
Yeah, I started to panic, and thank God. And listen, I'll never, my sisters, my family did an incredible job of coming there and staying with me for just exactly that moment when I woke up, that I would see something familiar.
Right.
Because as far as I knew, I was traveling off to these different places that made no sense.
You had a conversation with me before you went into the coma, and you said, "I'm not feeling right. I feel like I'm slipping away."
Really?
And your sister called me a short time afterwards, I don't know, within a month, and said, "Vinny's in a coma." And I remember I was going to a hockey game in Wenatchee, and it just ruined the whole evening. I'm sitting there surrounded by all these people, and I'm only thinking about you, and because it didn't look good,
Yeah.
and it just put me into a funk for a while. And I remember those. I remember that quote. I remember you telling me that over the phone.
Yeah, I probably felt it coming on somehow, or felt something major was going to happen. I mean, you can always tell about these things. It's not hard to, but yeah, I just kind of felt that something was going to happen. I didn't know what, and by the time it started happening, it just got progressively to where I couldn't move.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what exactly was happening, and again, I didn't know. I wasn't smart enough to know to do anything about it. What it
Well,
was.
what could you have done?
I don't know. I
Really?
mean, I had actually been going to the doctor because I hadn't been feeling good. And the doctor couldn't, I mean, they did blood tests and this kind of test and that kind of test. And really, if it had not been for them giving me, I don't know how much I can talk about this, but if it not had given me a bad mixture of drugs in the emergency room in New York, I probably would have gone in and, got some oxygen and you know, uh, went home, gone home.
Yeah.
But between the drugs and the low oxygen and whatever they gave me, it lit the fire.
Yeah.
When the spark was there, they just had to put some kind of something to burn.
Well, you're back now, then, and we're all grateful for that. You went to a interesting place that many of us don't get to visit, and it's 3 or 4 dimensions wide because it's out there. All those memories and all that activity and all your thoughts are it just shows you what the brain can create, and who knows where you really were.
Yeah, it gives you, there's two things it does that I've really come to believe. And I know we talk about God a lot, in whether you believe, you don't believe what, but it makes you believe that there is something out there that you want to call it God, you want to call it Allah, you want to call it Buddha, whatever you want to call it. There's a force greater than us out there.
It's funny how we talk about this because we live on a planet in a solar system, in a galaxy, in a universe. And we keep saying, there's got to be something out there. Yeah, there is. It's infinity. It goes on forever. There's planets and there's stars and there's galaxies and there's black holes and double whammies everywhere you look. And we kept going, we haven't quite put our finger on it, but there's something somewhere. It's out there. Look at it. Here's a picture of it. How big do you want it to be? How much of an answer does it have to be before you just say it's the world we live in? That's what's out there. And it's big, it's huge, it's monstrous.
Well, yeah, but also in something out there, I've come to think over the past 5 or 6 years that there's a collective
Consciousness.
consciousness. Thank you. That's exactly what I was looking for. There's our own individual consciousness and how we choose to do things and how we choose to get up and work and what we choose to. But there's also this collective consciousness, and if you can summon the forces of that collective consciousness to um, to include you in that for the good or the bad, no matter how you want to put it, um, that things can happen. All of that mind power can either save you or drive you deeper into the hole. And your ability to marshal that, your ability to, and I don't even know if it's your ability. I,
Yeah,
Maybe it's just the cosmos that
right.
makes it happen. but there's certainly something. I will always believe that there is something to the collective consciousness of people working together. In my case, it was my family and friends. Once people found out that I was sick, how many people either called or got in touch with my sister or Facebook and all of that, that really um, subconsciously I knew about it. I don't
Yeah.
know how I knew about it, but I knew about it. So while I was off in La La Land, dancing my way through the movie, people were pulling for me, and I could feel that. So it made me fight to come back. It never made me close my eyes and think this is it and slip away.
Mhm.
It made me stop slipping away. It turned me around. And I'm not smart enough to know how it all works. I just know that it works. It's like how a plane flies. I'm not still 100% sure how that damn plane flies, but I know that it gets me from here to there.
And they don't explain it to you in the air. They just say, if we do anything wrong at this point, we're 30,000 feet. It's going to be a mess. So we'll just continue with the magic of flight. Somehow
Yeah,
the air goes under the wing. I can't explain it. You would
can't
think with
explain it, but
all these people on a plane, if it was easy to fly, why didn't you fly by yourself? No, you can't fly, and we can, but we won't explain how. Never give
right.
away your
Could you
secret.
imagine if they had to explain how what the plane how a plane today would be, like all the questions that people would be asking, and it'd be a mess. There's some
Well,
things it's better that you don't know.
and now, when it's fashionable to be clinically insane and get on a plane and refuse to sit down, or want to open the door, or have some sort of an attack where your luggage is in the overhead bin the wrong way, or you just don't like the person that you're sitting next to, and that's a problem, and you won't give up. Um, all I can say is federal charges await you. Have your say. We're not taking off until you're off this plane, and federal charges will ensue. And if you want to see
Yeah,
what federal charges are like, you don't get an arraignment with four lawyers, and you don't have to, and you do have to surrender your passport, and you do have to go away for a little while and learn your manners.
well, yeah, that farce yesterday. I mean, what a dog and pony show that was. I don't really want to spend a lot of time talking about it because it makes me sick. I after I watched the party outside the party that I would never want to go to outside of the courthouse. Um, I had to turn it off. I started watching old reruns of Dragnet. Uh,
Yeah, because you fall in love with the pacing. Dun, 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 dun,
yeah, it's
midday.
such a great
Dun,
show.
dun, dun, dun.
I've been watching the original and the first one from the 50s, and there's such great shows. Webb and the people who wrote that show had such a feel for the oddball.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah,
and just they're rolling their eyes, but they have to talk to him because he saw the murder, or they
right,
think he
right,
saw it.
right. Every episode has just oddball kind of person in it, either
Okay.
that's the criminal or a witness or the other cop that he works with. That it's almost like a comedy.
Well, it is a comedy. I remember people auditioned for that show, and Jack Webb would say, "What are you doing?" And they say, "Well, I'm just trying to put some life into this." I said, "No, don't put any life into it. Hear the way I'm talking. That's the way I want you to talk. I'm working the day shift on the bunco squad. What the hell is the bunco squad? I wanted to know in my protected Marin County growing up. I've said I've been around. I'm in the fifth grade. I know things. I've never run into a bunco squad. What the hell is that? And they don't explain it. They just go on. Bunco.
Yeah, they just
Okay.
they well, I think they give you credit for thinking or knowing what it is. Like they figure you'll run to the Encyclopedia Britannica that they were advertising at the top of the hill and look up Bunko Squad.
But they invented that, Jack Webb and his crews, his writers and producers and contributors, invented purposely that pace, that dryness, that dry humor, that wah, wah, at the end of the scene. And they had those great bumpers. You couldn't do the working the day shift out of the bungo squad.
Yeah.
Bum, 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 bum. And you think, Jesus, they played the music. Something's going to happen. Something's coming down. It's a quiet day, but it's not going to stay quiet. Jack Webb's on the case. And it might be frivolous. We talked to the grandman. What happened to it? Well, he saw my bass and he just broke it. And that doesn't sound right. No, there must have been something in the vase, don't you think? Oh, I never thought of that. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
We knew that the 45 we've been looking for had been in that vase.
Yeah. 2:35 in the afternoon. We broke the vase ourselves and found. It was great the way they would mark it too. So you really felt like you were watching a police log, much more than you were watching. A television show. Now, I was a little young for the original, but I remember the reruns, and then of course I remember when they brought it back in '67 with Harry Morgan, who was the perfect.
He was great. He was so dry.
Perfect.
And what was the number of the badge?
714.
Damn right.
Same number that's on a Quaalude. Well,
same effect.
Well, it's interesting. The first couple of shows were not named Dragnet. They were named Badge 714.
Right.
And then they changed somewhere. Something really weird happened. I guess his original partner died after the second episode. Had a heart attack.
Wow.
So the guy that you see in most of those, Smith, I think it was Ben Alexander was the actor's name.
He was good.
Wasn't the original.
Huh, I didn't know that.
And the original guy, and I saw the first two episodes, I don't know, a week or so ago. He had a much drier. He was more like Webb than he was like Harry Morgan.
Right.
And so it was for whatever reason, this combo of the kind of offbeat, quirky, oddball guy worked so well off of Webb.
Yeah.
And when they got it to 67, when they revived the show, they found the perfect quirky guy. He was so quirky that it really, it just balanced him out perfectly.
The funny thing is they had this routine that they used once or twice every show where Webb is coming to the conclusion that they're never going to catch this guy. He's probably in Mexico. What a scene, he'd say. I'm really worried about it. And Webb would say, how so? And the other guy would go, well, because that's life, Jack. Nothing. It was the exchange. There was nothing in the information that was pertaining to the show. It was just their view on life. What do you think about that? Can't say. Why not?
Yeah.
Can't say. Dun, 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 dun. That's it. And they wore those strange suits. If you ever go down to the headquarters for the LAPD, which is near the tower that's on the badge,
right,
the old City Hall tower, and you see the guys walking in and out of the building, it's true. You can tell a cop just by the way they dress. The shoes, the sport coat, the mismatching tie and shirt.
Yeah, it's
classic. They still
the
dress
LA
that
cops
way.
the detectives had a certain way of dressing. It was unique and different, like from the New York detectives.
Right. Oh yeah.
From the I won't use a London detective, but maybe a Texas detective or a Chicago detective. There was different, but you tell them all a mile away. There was no, they might have they probably should have worn uniforms because they had a uniform on that was easily detectable. There wasn't many of them until really Serpico came along.
Yeah.
that kind of looked.
The whole idea of trying to be the narc didn't work if you look like a cop. It's just going to get you in trouble, and you're not going to solve the problem that you've been assigned to. So cops started looking like real people, or they were freakier than the freaks, like in the police story where all the guys be safe out there. The guy is saying,
Hill Street Blues.
Thank you, Hill Street Blues. They had a couple freaks in Hill Street Blues that worked the drug squad that were undercover,
right?
That were not only looking like a freak, but they were freaks. They,
right. You had Mick Belter.
If there was ever a fight, if there was ever a fight in the dressing room, one of those guys would be involved.
Exactly. You had the first iteration of Dennis Franz when he was the weird detective, the Italian guy that wore the weird sport coats and was an anti-hero, but yet you felt for him because he was so despicable that you wondered how a guy could get that despicable.
Why was he carrying a weapon? He really shouldn't have been.
Yeah. Why was this guy? How did this guy even pass the test? But he did pass the test, and he had, and then he was Benedetto. That was his name the first time they brought him around. Before they brought him around as Buns.
They did the opposite of that twice. They did it in Kojak, where he was a very conscious clothes hound. His suits, his ties, his coats, his overcoat, his hat, his cigars, everything was stylish and cut beautifully and fit to a T and right on the spot.
No, he was Who Loves You, Baby.
and there's no answer to that. That's an open-ended question. And then that happened again with Dennis Franz. No, not Dennis Franz. The ex-detective from Chicago, who was a real cop that came out to play. He was in
Dennis Farina.
Dennis Farina, thank you. You got all the names today, Vinnie. Thank you. And he played a part of a guy who spent a fortune on clothes and was always upset if he got blood on his shoes at the crime scene. He's got, look at these shoes.
Right, in Law and Order. Well,
$1,800. I bought them yesterday. Look at this.
His original series that brought him to fame was the show that was set in Chicago in the 60s. Not Police Story, but Police Spot, I think it was. But remember, it was with it was him. It was Anthony Dennison. It was and it was set in the 60s in Chicago. They used "Runaway" for the theme song. Del Shannon's "Runaway." I'm a walking in the rain, and it was a great show. It was a great I think it was on 3 seasons, and it was interesting because they actually changed venues in the show. They went from him being a Chicago cop to him going out to L.A. and winded up out in L.A. and. He was an ex-cop, Dennis Farina. He was a Chicago cop. And so he played the part really well and of that tough guy cop.
What I liked about Farina was his smile. He didn't smile when he was happy. He smiled when he was very disappointed in the answers he was getting.
Yeah.
Very disappointed in your attitude today, young man. So he would get close to the guy and smile before he said anything. And I'm going, here we go. Here we go.
He's in one of my favorite movies is
Get Shorty.
Is the movie with Robert De Niro where he's Charles Grodin is the accountant and they go on the road. What is it? Midnight Run.
Oh yeah, two opposites on a buddy film.
Yeah, you got Grodin, De Niro. De Niro's a bounty hunter. Grodin is the mob accountant who ratted everybody out, and Dennis Farina plays the mob boss.
Good casting.
In that movie, that's exactly what he does so well in that movie. He has that smile that when he smiles.
Yeah, there's trouble.
There's trouble. And they, of course, make him interesting in that he's the cop that he's the mob boss that got De Niro fired from the police department in Chicago.
Oh, so it's personal. It's not
So it's
business.
personal. Yeah, so there's a personal thing going on. And there's a scene where he asked De Niro about his wife. And I guess his wife left him and she hooked up with some police captain or something like that. And he does that exact thing that you talked about. He has that smile that is not a happy smile. It's
Nope.
a I screwed you smile.
Yeah.
I got you smile. Um, and it's really just a great moment on the film when he brings that smile brings every bit of his character to life.
Yes.
It's really phenomenal how he does that. Yeah, he was he was a great he was a character guy. I mean, he fit into. You didn't see him do too many sitcoms or anything like
No.
that, but
Did you see him in Lock, Stock, and Two Full Barrels or something like that?
no,
It was a
I don't think I saw that.
British comedy, and he sends a guy over to get a diamond, and he's got the diamond, but he trades it for cash to go gambling to double his money, and they keep flying from New York to London to go chase this guy down, and he becomes part of this crazy chase movie that goes on forever. You should see it. Lock,
I'll
Stock,
look
and Two
for it.
Smoking
I love
Barrels.
case movies.
Oh, you're gonna like this one. You're gonna like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Yeah,
Funny as hell, and great music, fantastic music.
I'll look for it. And I'm a big Dennis Farina fan. I always enjoyed his work, and I liked him on Law and Order. It was kind of tough to get uh, Lenny Briscoe was such an iconic character
So wonderful.
that it was really hard to because they brought Farina in right after him and after he had passed away, and it was really hard to get used to him, but he had enough of that type of character in him, and he didn't overplay the part.
I
He
saw
just
Lenny, well, not Lenny, but I saw the real actor,
Jerry Orbach.
Jerry Orbach, touring with the show called 42nd Street. He played the Orpheum Theater in San Francisco. I saw him come out and do his song and dance, New York, New York, and all the songs around it, and he could do it. You could see he never showed it in Law and Order, but he was a dance man. He
Oh, he
was a
was a great
singer.
stage actor. He
He
was
was he was a Broadway man, and up and down the Great White Way, that was his beat.
matter of fact, he has a theater named after him.
He should.
On Broad, it's actually on Broadway. I think it's 47th or something like that, or 45th. I forget. Not a big theater. It's just a little, and it's more of an actor's studio than it is. It's a theater, but it's downstairs, and they put on experiment. It's like an off-Broadway theater without being off. It's funny. It's an off-Broadway theater on Broadway. But I remember him in the Fantastics.
Oh yeah, I saw that show.
He was,
I saw that show
there's
at
a
the
great
at the
clip of it
Village
on
Gate,
YouTube where he sings "Try to Remember."
of course, and he sang it night after night after night. That
Yeah,
show ran.
and
That show
he
ran
just
for 10
killed it
years.
night after night after night. Um, if you grew up in New York when I did, you knew that the Fantastics was the longest running play in New York.
And it was a little house. I think it was at the Gate.
It was a little house, uh, and it was just, and there were lines to see it every night,
Every damn
every
night.
night.
8 shows a week.
Yeah, I mean, it was just it was a part of that fabric. If you look at any film of New York in the '60s, middle '60s, almost every bus had
Fantastic poster.
a poster on the front of a small poster on the front of the bus that said "Fantastic New York's longest running play," and it was it was a part of '60s New York growing up, and it was interesting because it was a part that no matter what age you were, you could go see this show and get
Oh yeah, you can
You
get
know,
into
you
Long
could go with
Island.
your kid. If your kid was 16 and a hippie, and you were a Wall Street, broker, capitalistic, everything that they were fighting against, the two of you could go watch this show and get it and be entertained.
There's another show that ran in New York at the same time in the Village called Jacques Brel is Alive and Well,
Yes.
and it was a series of his songs sung by four people, two girls, two men, and it ran for years. And it wasn't a Broadway show; it was a series of these songs that Jacques Brel wrote, and each one was a story. And they sang it and they dramatized it in their delivery, and it was the most endearing, interesting show because it had been put together by Mort Schumann, who used to write rock and roll songs, and one other writer from the Brill Building days who said, we'll take nobody knows Jacques Brel. He writes these amazing songs. French singers have been knocking out the charts with him for years. Let's translate them into English. We'll do a show of these back-to-back Jacques Brel pieces and dramatize them. And it was just four people in turtlenecks and on stools in spotlights, and it was a fantastic show. Really spirited. It would just take you away. Each song is a different story.
Well, and there was another one. Well, there was another one that always played on. That was for many years on. Played on a theater on Bleecker Street called Hotel Baltimore.
Yes.
Which was a long running. I mean, that thing ran in that theater for years. Matter of fact, they tried to make a TV series out of it, a sitcom, and it never worked out because they couldn't do the things on television that you could do in the
Yeah.
play. But I remember seeing the play when I was in my teens because I fell in love with the theater when I was in my teens, even though I was like a million miles away from it. It not a million miles socially, but that when I started going to plays, it really made me want to do that.
Yeah.
Um, the first play I ever saw, I remember it. Besides being in The Wizard of Oz when I was in third grade, was "It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Superman" at the Alvin Theater.
Right up your
And
alley.
you were just, I was just taken away with, this is so much better than the movies.
I saw the Tony Awards this weekend.
Did you?
It was,
I didn't see him. First time
it was
probably in a while that I hadn't watched them.
the interesting thing is to honor the Writers Guild of America writer's strike, which is still going on because the studios refused to negotiate. They had no script, and all the speakers had to make up their own lines to get from. You got to get us from here to there. What do I say? That's just it. You got to tell them who you are, tell them what they can, what the award is for, and tell them what and introduce We'll go to the tape with the nominees. The nominees are, and it was a great night because people were conversational, and each person had to come out and introduce themselves. Hello, I'm Vinnie Riccici. Good evening to you. We were given the award for Best Actress in a Play, Comedy or Musical, and the nominees are. And it ran beautifully. It was smoothly. Nobody gummed it up. Nobody made a political speech. Nobody made a fool of themselves. It was a good night where actors were asked to use some of your talent and not screw up the introduction like so many people do at the Academy Awards. I like the fact that somebody who's paid to memorize their lines can't introduce a simple category.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
you find out.
it's like news people. Many news people. If there's no prompter, they're screwed. How many times have we seen it in live coverage where somebody's sitting there and the prompt goes, or there's just no, and they got a vamp for a couple of minutes, and it's a disaster.
I like to know how well somebody knows their story if they're going to play a piece and they can't play it, and it's up to them to tell you what they were going to miss. Some people go right into it. Well, the president would have said blah 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 blah, and other people say, other people go around circling the drain.
Right? Do we have it? How come we don't have it? You idiot!
No, we don't have it. No, it's up to you to fill it. And plus, you
Yeah,
can't call. You can't just sit there and call for tape. We're not your servants. If it's not in the script, how are we supposed to know you wanted it?
right. That's why you have that thing in front of you, and that's why we told you, when you got in here this morning, that you should probably look at the pieces. I mean, when I was doing TV over at 13, I used to come in and I used to look at all of the tape that they were gonna, the packages that they put together that night, so that I would know what was in there in case something went wrong.
Right.
And also, I used to like to not. I didn't write the descriptions for the highlights. I just jotted down, Peyton for three, score 104, 101 or something like that, and then just kind of described it in my manner, ad libbed it. And so if my tape went out, I knew what was there. I could tell you what happened. And that's why a lot of news directors like sports people to do news, because sports people are used to, you know,
Thinking on their
A,
feet.
doing it quickly, and B,
Yeah.
thinking on their feet. If something happens, you know how to describe something. You know how to work without, if you don't have a piece of sound or you don't have a piece of video, you know how to describe the action. This is
Well,
what happened.
in baseball headlines from yesterday, both the Giants and the Mets made Sports Center. The Mets because Scherzer pitched and got touched up a little bit, but the Mets won. They managed to win, but
Yeah.
they're still playing under 500. And the Giants now are 3 games over 500. And last night they brought up another kid who came through again and did something that had never been done in the entire history of the New York/San Francisco Giants, and that is in their major league debut, they recorded a save. Now, you think that over the time of baseball and all the games that have been played and all the pitchers that have come up from the minors, that would have happened already.
There's somebody, yeah.
Somebody, somewhere would get a save in their first game, but it hadn't happened because of the way managers use rookie pitchers. And when they see a save coming up, they're going to bring in a veteran to make sure that they know how this game is going to end. The guy's name is Keaton Win, Winn, and he did win last night. And his whole family was there for the event, and he got called up from Sacramento, and he's the third rookie to come in this year and distinguish himself in his first game. They got a shortstop named Casey, they got a new catcher named Bailey, and now a pitcher named Wynn. So I just say, bring the kids up, bring them all up. If that's how it's going to take to win this year, let's do it. And the Giants have won 3 in a row. So I wear my Giants hat today in honor of the idea that, as I've always said, if you can't pitch to win, if you can't bat to hit, if you can't score runs, I will find someone who will. And that's the nature of the game.
Well,
Filling your lineup with guys who can hit, win, and pitch.
well. Meanwhile, and I wish Mr. Wynn many wins or many saves. It'd be interesting to go back and see how many pitchers named Wynn that there have been in major leagues, if any. I mean, I know there's been players.
Yeah.
Probably the most famous, Jimmy Wynn, from the 60s.
This guy's name is spelled
WYNN, 60s
this
and
is
70s. But you
it's
also have
spelled
Randy Wynn
yeah.
from, was a Mariner, spent time as a Mariner for a while, and was traded for Lou Piniella.
Oh God.
When Piniella wanted to go to Tampa Bay, the Mariners demanded compensation because he was still under contract. So
They sent him some balls and some bats.
they sent him some balls and some bats and Randy Wynn. And nice guy, but
Not Lupinella.
he didn't do as much for the club as Lou did. But our guy hit a couple of dingers last night.
Ah.
Mike Ford.
Yes.
Who is eventually going to wear that same kind of uniform that Gaylord Perry had worn at one time with all of his teams on it.
Yes.
I'm starting to think that Mike Ford is going to have that, but he had crushed a couple of home runs last night in helping the Mariners beat the Marlins.
Giants want him back. Okay, I don't care what. I don't know how this happened. I guess they DFA'd him. They took Seattle DFA'd him. Giants picked him up. They DFA'd him. Seattle picked him up again. So it was like around the big. But the kid can hit.
Well, the poor guy. I mean, he probably got an apartment in each city. You know, I mean, you know, he's going back and forth. They probably know him on Alaska Airlines. He's you know, because he's been what? He's been up with both clubs over the last 2 years, at least 2 times. Each club, maybe more, maybe 3 with the Mariners and 2 with the Giants. And I think he snuck. I think he snuck a stint with the Yankees in there somewhere.
I think he started with the Yankees.
Yeah, it might have been that he came from the Yankees, and but yeah, I mean, you know, he's one of those players. He's like Shane Monahan. I always always equate him to Shane Monahan, who's a guy who came up, had a great week-long career, and then faded into obscurity. Now, Ford is better than a week-long career. We've already seen that. But I mean, he's 30 years old. Where's he going? He's, you know, he's up because they need a warm body. But yet, he's good enough that he stays.
Well, he's got not just power, but reliable power, because in his few appearances this year, whether it's with the Giants or the Mariners, he hits the damn ball. He hits the ball.
He's a contact guy. Yeah, he doesn't. I don't think he strikes out a lot.
And he hits with power. I like his attitude. I like his stick-to-itiveness. And if the Mariners can't find a place for him, send him back to San Francisco.
Send him back to the Giants. Yeah. No, I like Mike Ford. I think he's you know, I think he's one of those, like I say, he's one of those guys that are just above, you know, he's just good enough to be there. But if you give him the opportunity, he'll, you know, I don't know if he'll produce for you over the long range, but he seems to be able in 2 and 3 week spurts to be able to, I don't know, maybe it's before pitchers figure him out. That's what I've always thought. Think guys like that have is the ability to, you know, the pitchers just can't figure him out right away.
So my suggestion to revitalize the season for the New York Mets is don't talk about the lineup that you got there right now. Let's sit down and have a serious discussion about who's in AAA or AA, who is shining. And they always say, this kid's going to do it, but he's not ready yet. Just say, send him over here. We'll find out how ready he is or whether he isn't. Who do you got? And it'll be somebody you don't know. It'll be somebody that really you're not familiar with who can come up and make a difference.
Well, you know, you know, in the Mets case, I mean, they're so up against 2 factors in New York. It's not only that they don't have to just compete in the National League, but they also have to compete against the Yankees.
That's what they're doing right now, isn't it? The Subway Series.
Right, but not just in the not just on the field, but off the field. They're competing with the Yankees for space. They're competing for the Yankees for your sports spending dollar. You're going to buy a Yankee hat. You're going to buy a Met. But I've never even bought into that 100% because I think you're either a Mets fan or a Yankee fan. And if you show up with one of those hats with them on it, they should put you sit you in a special place.
Yeah. Don't wear a stupid hat like that. Cut down the middle.
Yeah.
Or the Giants on one side and the A's on the other. No, don't do that.
I saw somebody. I remember one time I saw Giuliani somewhere, and somebody tried to give him one of those hats, and he swatted them away. He said, "I'm a Yankee fan," and you know what? I have respect for him for that. I mean, I don't think he'd do that today. He'd probably wear whatever hat you stuck on him as long as you paid him.
He would wear half Yankee, half Mets magic underwear. That's what. In fact, he better wear. He better have some magic going his way.
In those days, you know, he was a Yankee fan, and he wasn't gonna back off of that. I think matter of fact, I think it was like maybe it was the '86 series or something like that. Somewhere along the line, of him being at the ballpark. They tried to stick that hat on it. Boom. But yeah, listen, the Mets. I mean, they spent a ton of money on two old pitchers. They rolled the dice, thinking that they could get one more year or 2 more years out of Scherzer and Verlander, and both of them. Um,
Have some
I,
trouble.
yeah, I don't know I don't know if it's the end of their careers, or it's the pressure of New York, or what it is. I think Scherzer has been, besides being hurt, has been, an interesting guy in New York. Verlander, again, these guys seem to go to New York. Same thing seems to happen. Maybe it's the longitude, because the same thing seems to happen with pitchers that come here. They go and they
Too far
spend a
north.
ton of money to sign, Robbie Ray, and he stinks for 2 years. This year he's out. Last year he stuck. A year before that he won the Cy Young Award.
Maybe it's just too far north, the wrong ley lines. Although that
He
doesn't
won it in
explain.
Toronto, Michael.
It doesn't. Give me a minute. Well, the idea that
you don't remember this probably, but in '97. Oh crap! I can't remember who the pitcher was. I'll remember it in a minute. Who was the guy? Sterling. Sterling, whatever it was. He came over
Sterling
from
Morrison.
Yeah, and it was a cold night, and he lost the game. He got touched up in the playoffs, and I remember they asked Lou Piniella in a post game press conference. They said, "Well, it was a cold night out there." He said something about it was cold. And he looks at the reporter and he says, "The guy grew up in freaking Minnesota." I just thought it was, Lou like stealing mine right away. The guy grew up in freaking Minnesota. What cold pitching? He grew up pitching in the cold.
And pitchers get to wear jackets on the base path. So, can anybody wear a jacket on the base path?
I don't think
can a
pitchers have
shortstop
any
say
reason to be on base paths anymore.
Well, let's just say you're at first base. Can a shortstop wear a jacket?
No, I don't think so. I think the pitcher is the only player that can wear a jacket. I always thought that was Sterling Hitchcock. That was the guy's name. Mickey Delaney just
Great name.
Sterling Hitchcock. Sterling Hitchcock. He got. But you know what? I don't think it was Sterling Hitchcock. I think it was Andy Bennis. Actually, now that I think about it, it was Bennis that got touched up. And
Sterling Hitchcock sounds like there was a period in time when all the radio stations had one British guy on at night during the British Revolution. And they would give him an English name like Lord Such or Michael Scotland. And that would be a good name for a top 40 British DJ in 1965 or 1966, Sterling Hitchcock.
Hello, it's Sterling Hitchcock here.
And then they got to have the singing jingle. Sterling Hitchcock.
Sterling
WABC.
Hitchcock brings you your British hits. But he doesn't play no Australian records.
I rooted for Denver all the way through the NBA playoffs, and it played off. But what an exciting team, and what a interesting star that Josic has turned into be. He has his game is so complete that you can't find a weakness. He can run, he can shoot, he can distribute, he can see. He's got extraordinary vision. His head, you can. Someone mentioned, I guess it was LeBron James. He said he brings into focus a part of the game that we don't talk about that much. Because this part.
He's a phenomenal player. and the best player probably in the NBA that nobody knew about.
What they know about him now,
And they know
Nikola
about him now.
Jokic.
I mean, talk about a secret weapon. Did you know much about him before the playoffs?
I would just recognize him because of his name.
Yeah, but uh, you know about him now. You'll never forget him if you watched any part of
No,
that playoff.
he
Uh,
was
uh,
remarkable,
any of those series that he was involved in. Um,
and
the
he's such a cool customer too. He's just
Yeah,
very,
the 30
very
20
collected.
10 triple double.
Yeah,
I mean,
remarkable
that'll
night.
stand out in my mind. I mean, I watched that game, and I mean, he just took that game over.
And
Um,
guys that are 7'1" have height. They have some ability that a smaller guy doesn't have, but they usually don't have all the finesse that Jokic has, and that's it's just remarkable in a man that large. He's got so many moves, and he's in total control of his body. Where
yeah,
I mean, he plays like he's 6'7".
he's fantastic to watch. I mean, he's
Yeah,
just such a gazelle out there, and yet he has that kind of it's funny. He has that look of innocence about him.
yeah. Like I didn't mean to do that. Here's
Like,
the weird thing is, he seems to be able to back in no matter who you are. And they double team him and he backs in, splits them, and just puts the ball up.
yeah,
He bumps into these guys as if and these are big men who cannot take the bump. And it's extraordinary his ability in the paint to back into any situation and score.
he must
Fascinating.
have a smelly butt. That's the only thing I can think about because he backs in and people seem to part. So the only thing I can think about is this guy must eat like two plates of beans before a before a game. Here comes Jokic. Get out
Here
of the
comes
way.
that guy. Here comes that guy from Serbia, the bean eater.
And it was
Yeah.
nice to see his family there. I
His,
mean,
his brothers. Did you see his brothers?
the
Both of them are
brothers.
really.
Do they play? I mean, are they?
They look like they could play a number of sports, but I was
Yeah,
thinking of the poor mother who had to feed those three boys.
yeah. Well, she's getting paid off now. That's for sure.
I hope Mama is getting her check.
But it was nice to see, the whole thing. I always it was funny though. I remember there was a moment when I was watching it, and I was saying to myself, it's nice that he has his brothers down there and
Yeah.
everything, but this is kind of his moment. But I guess really, if you think about it, what's a moment if you can't share it with your family, right?
Plus, I have the feeling he's the baby. It just had the look of that. It looked like his brothers were big guys, but they were older than he was.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. There was just this. I don't know. You just you felt good for him. You know.
Imagine the kids coming over to the Josik house and says, "Where's Nikola? He's the baby. We're not bringing Nikola along. He's
Yeah,
the
now
baby.
leave him. We're
That
saving him.
guy's the baby."
And of course, the fine fans of Denver um, made sure that there was shooting after the. Although, did you hear the story about that?
No.
About the shootings?
Uh-uh.
I guess now somebody told me this secondhand, so I'm not sure how accurate it is. But the story sounded so good. It's like one of those baseball stories, that happen, and over the years it gets embellished to the point where it couldn't have happened, but yet it sounds so good that you'll tell it anyway.
Like Stu Miller getting blown off the mound during the All-Star game.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. The story's too good not to tell. Whether it's true or not is irrelevant. Um, I guess there were these people, these guys, women, who knows, making a drug deal outside of the arena.
Like you do.
Like, I mean, you go down there and yeah, I mean, I guess, I don't know. And so the doors of the arena opened up and all these people started pouring out because it was the end of the game, which there's a little hole in that story because I remember looking and seeing a lot of people actually, and these
Yeah.
guys got frightened or not frightened, but they just didn't know what the hell was going on. And they started shooting at each other. And that's how everybody got shot. I don't know that I buy it, but it sounded like a great story.
Well, if I had been at that game, I wouldn't have left the venue when the game was over because they were going to give away the awards and everybody was going to be putting
Yeah,
on
but
their
there's always
t-shirts
people that say, "Come on, let's go now, so we can beat the crowd."
Yeah, we are the crowd. We're supposed to be here.
I'm perfect. I'm always perfectly happy being the last one out of the arena. Because for many
Yeah,
years I was the last one out of the ballpark, which is
right.
an odd feeling to begin with. But I have no problems. I like sitting around after the game, and even just regular season games. I don't have to be the first one out the door and down to the parking garage to get my car to get out. I'm in no rush to go anywhere.
No, not at
Usually,
a baseball game. Yeah, well,
yeah,
that's the baseball. That's the baseball clock, which doesn't exist. You're at the game, and the game goes until it's over. Even with a pitch clock, you still have to play till the game is over and somebody wins.
yeah, and in olden days, they didn't have the security guards that would come by and toss you out of your seat.
No,
Nowadays you stay in your seat 15 minutes after the game, and the ushers are coming and get out. You got to go. But Stadium, man, once the game was over, the ushers disappeared, the cops disappeared. You were just sitting there.
we got places to go and things to do.
Matter of fact, you used to be able to, you know, at Shea when it after the game, the Harry M. Stevens, facilities there, the carts with the racks of sodas in them used to be left outside. You're going to have to dump
Oh,
those sodas. So if you waited about 20 minutes, 30 minutes after the game and meandered around the ballpark, you could get yourself as much free soda as you could drink. There was, you could they put the racks out on the passageways until so you could grab a cup or two of soda and either drink it or take it with you on the subway if you wanted to. Or
you want to know from Harry M. Stevens his secret to get all the carbonation out of a Coke and then sell it to you. How he did it, how he extracted the carbonation to make it flat and unworthy of a Coke
How do
is
you make a
impossible.
Coke flat by Harry M. Stevens? Yeah, or a hot dog cold.
Now there's a great book.
Yeah,
There's a great book.
how do you make a hot dog cold? And a hot chocolate. Although I got to admit that the hot chocolates at Shea Stadium, when they would sell them in the cold months, were always hot. They had these guys carried the one thing that they had that was right is these guys carried these huge flasks on their backs
With hot chocolate in them.
with all the hot chocolate in it, and then when you would get one, they would just take the cup out of another thing and put the chocolate into the cup
Yep.
and give it to you, and the hot chocolate actually hot. Not to mention the
Well,
fact that they were walking around with a can of Sterno on their back.
I miss as a young man the beer sellers at Seal Stadium and an early Candlestick because they had a case of beer in front of them in bottles. They come up to you, 2 beers. In one hand, he holds 2 cups
Yep.
like this. With the other hand, the tops of the bottles are flying. I love that. He boom and boom with just no regard for where the cups went. And then with the other hand, he's got 2 bottles by the neck, and he pours them and he pours them and he pours them and he pours them. And I wanted him to pour it until all the beer was out of the bottle, but he never would. He'd get close to the end and then just back in the sack, and here's your beer. Pass it down the line. But it was poetry. It was beautiful
art.
to watch.
Yeah.
And they don't do it that way anymore. They don't want the glass. They don't want the bottle. They don't want the problem of pouring the beer. And it's a mistake because who wants a beer? The guy who just watched this guy pour 2 cold ones out of a bottle. That's who wants the beer. And it's the show that guy put on, unintentional. He didn't have to say beer anymore. Everybody knew what he was doing
Right.
and what.
You just heard that. that
Yeah.
was, had that key that opens up the bottles, and they had the same deal at the polo grounds, and even I think probably up until the late '60s, early '70s at Shea Stadium, where they had the bottles, the slim bottles of Rangold, and would pour them in, and
I can't
and
remember what brand it was. It probably was Hams or Hams, maybe Lucky
or
Lager,
yeah, didn't they sell Lucky there at Candlestick? I always thought that was.
possibly
I'd
Lucky
have to
Lager.
go back and look at. You can always tell what beer they're selling by looking up an old program online,
Oh yes,
and they'll have the big ad for. But for many years, it was Rangold at
of course.
Polo Grounds and then Shea Stadium, and then they switched. I think it might have been
Valentine's.
in the '70s to Schaefer.
Oh, Schaefer. Well, why am I thinking Rheingold? Was that the Yankees?
No, no, Ballantyne was the Yankees.
Valentine's. Okay, that's what I
Ballantyne,
meant.
the one with the three rings,
Right.
that was Yankees for the longest time. And then Rangold was the Mets, and then the Mets switched to Schaefer, and I don't know what the Yankees eventually switched to. Um, but I think but they were with Ballantyne for a long time.
Yes, they
I
were.
always remember Mel Allen doing those Ballantyne commercials.
Did you see John Silver get hit by the foul ball? Did you see the video of
I
that?
did not see it. No, I heard of it, but I did not see the video.
He calls the foul ball. He glances down, thinking that the ball's not going to get to him. And while he's just glancing down for a minute, the ball going bang right in the forehead. But it was glancing, so he was lucky. He could have been hurt.
Oh yeah,
He was lucky. He
yeah.
took that right in. And the funny thing was, he had just returned from his triplets' wedding. They had a birthday wedding, some combination. And he has triplet girls, so that give you some idea how crazy life is at home. And had got sick and missed a couple days with strep throat or something. Just comes back and gets hit in the head with a foul ball. The chances of the ball coming to the press box are not good. A lot of balls don't go in there. They do go in, but not a lot. But to see it coming and then say, it's never going to make it, glance down at your scorecard and get bonked in the head by it. What a rude thing. And to be live on the air.
Yeah, I've heard that a couple of times. Matter of fact, I've been in the booth when a ball has come back at Safeco. I think Rick Riz got popped by one night. I think I saw Blowers catch one, just clamp it. Yeah, luckily he's luckily he's okay, because people sometimes forget that, you get popped by a ball, man. Even if it's up that high, it's the velocity is still such
It
that it's
hurts.
going to hurt you.
Oh, yeah.
I remember
What I like about radio play-by-play is when the ball comes into the booth, they say, "Whoa, it's coming in here." And you hear the ball bouncing around. Because
yeah,
when it comes in, it goes boom, 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 ricocheting around the room.
or if you're a really good and veteran and smart play-by-play guy, you carry a ball.
I got it.
I got boom, boom, boom.
Always keep a ball. Yes,
Always
just
keep a ball on the counter just in case. You never know when it's going to come in handy.
yeah.
I remember one night I was in the press box, and somebody had a foul ball, and I don't know why I was watching this. I was talking to Holly Martinez, Edgar's wife, and I was going to MC some charity thing for them, and somebody fouled the ball, and it came, and it's very rare that it ever did this, came up into the press box, past the 3 rows of press seating, and all of a sudden I see the white flash, and I grabbed Holly like this, and the ball went right where she was.
Wow.
So, I don't know if they saved her life, but she would have got popped with that thing, definitely. And so, after the game, I guess she had told Edgar, and Edgar was, I heard you saved my wife's life. But the ball would. As a matter of fact, I still have the ball somewhere. I hung on to the
It's a good
ball.
thing it wasn't Edgar's foul ball. He would have never heard the end of that.
Oh yeah, no, that wouldn't have been good. No,
No,
that wouldn't have.
I
That
come
would
to
have.
the game. You know I don't like to come to all the games. I'm sitting there. What do? You put one in the press box.
And you go after me. Is that how you go after me? Well, we're getting double. No. Yes, foul balls are dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's I miss the nowadays you go to a ball game and it's 9 different types of beer and it's $15 a cup for beer. It's crazy. I don't know why anybody would ever buy a beer at a ballpark. And I love to drink. I'm not a beer drinker.
Can you bring your own bag of peanuts into Mariners home games?
I don't know if you can anymore. You used to be able to, which is something that I'm totally. As a matter of fact, I remember when we did the ballpark stuff, they wanted to not allow people to bring food in from the outside, and I remember like talking about that on the radio, saying, "No, no, 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 wait a second," and they eventually dropped that requirement that you not bring food. But I don't know now if since 9/11 or whatever that they've changed that around. To me, the bet. I mean, listen, we used to go when we used to go to Shea Stadium. We used to stop and buy a sandwich. And even a Candlestick. When I used to go to Candlestick in the 80s, my friend Rob and I, there was Rob lived on that last street before Candlestick.
Yeah.
What is it? I forget the name of the street, but it passes under 101. You come out on the other side, and there's the parking lots for Candlestick. And right on the corner where you come off for Silver Avenue and you make that turn around to go under that underpass, you go down that street he lived on. There was a deli. I forget the guy was either Armenian or Turk, some Eastern European nationality, and they make great sandwiches.
He knew how to make a sandwich.
He knew how to make a sandwich, man, on nice Italian bread, good Italian bread, sourdough Italian bread. And so we used to go there and pick up a couple of sandwiches, go to Candlestick. I forget what general admissions were. I don't know. It was a $1.50, $1.75, something like that. Go get a couple of general admission seats, sneak down to the box seats. Of course, there was nobody at a day game at Candlestick. There was always seats.
No, it looked like an A's game.
Yeah, and you sit out in right field, eat your sandwich, get a Coke, or I wasn't drinking beer in those days, so we get a couple of Cokes, and nobody ever bothered you. Maybe you'd buy some French fries or something like that.
Yeah, because Candlestick was not famous for its food. I always went for the peanuts because I was a nervous baseball watcher, and that allowed me to be involved in the game without going crazy, without just sitting there holding my hands together.
Right.
The peanut, and also I like making the mess. Like making peanuts are hard to eat. If you eat peanuts in your living room, you're going to have them all over the couch, all over the chair, all over the floor, all over the table, and somebody's going to have to clean that up. Well, at Candlestick Park or any park of your choice, the peanuts were getting everywhere, and nobody was going to clean it up. It might be there next week. Who knew?
That was somebody's job. Somebody actually got paid to come along after you later that day or that night and clean up those peanuts. If you didn't leave those peanuts on the floor, that person was going to be out of a job.
So I was really doing my bit for the economy.
It was incumbent upon you to leave peanut shells. I always thought that's one of the things I always thought was great about a baseball game is you could go and make a mess and then just get up and leave.
Just get up and leave. And also you can enjoy other people getting their beer all over them when the foul ball comes into their area.
Yeah.
Because there's no place to put a cup of beer in a baseball stadium when you have to think in 1 second time periods. You have 1 second to adjust to this ball. Here it comes. First thing to go is the beer because you're getting up, you're moving, and now the cup's sideways. It's beyond saving, but you're still holding on to it, and it's that reluctance to let go of the beer that makes you miss the ball. Oh, and you lost your beer. If you're going to lose your beer, gets the ball.
And I always love the guy who catches the ball with the cup. The ball goes into the cup, and then he gets the beer splashed over. But he's got the ball.
A fountain of Rhine
gold.
gold.
Worth nothing because it's full of beer. Yeah. Every time they catch that guy on TV, I give him a thumbs up, man. I say that's sticking with it, pal. You sacrificed a $15 beer for a $2 ball. Economically, that doesn't work. Economically, that doesn't work.
I heard, although we're not going to talk about Donald Trump today, I heard someone mispronounce the name of his judge, whose name is Eileen Cannon, but they called her Alien Cannon, and I'm going to stick with that. Her name is now and shall always be Judge Alien Cannon. And
I like that.
The sooner she recuses herself, the better her career will be.
Yeah, she's well, we'll have plenty of time to talk about it.
We'll have a year to talk about it.
We'll have more than that. We'll be talking about this. This isn't, I fully suspect that the legal actions are going to last longer than Trump.
You know what's next? The January 6th Commission will send its findings, and they had
they sent them already. Isn't the Justice Department trying to figure out?
They're still doing testimony before the grand jury.
So yeah. No, his troubles aren't going away.
No.
Yeah, his troubles aren't going away.
Couldn't happen to a nicer putz.
And why would you? Well, you know what? Let's not get into it. Before we go, Michael.
Yes.
I just want to. I want to note that the passing of a legend. You didn't know this guy, but when I was in Pittsburgh, I got to know Stan Savran. Maybe you've heard his name. He was, sports broadcaster like us. He did a talk show and did pre and post game for the Steelers, and I suspect throughout his career, all of the Pittsburgh teams. But he was one of these guys that was just a natural behind the microphone, a professional. Came into Pittsburgh with the hardest job in the world. There's only one thing that you could be worse than if you go to Pittsburgh, worse than a New Yorker, and that is be from Cleveland. And Stan went to Pittsburgh from Cleveland and won the hearts of most of the Pittsburgh sports fans. I'll never say all because there's always that one guy who's going to go, and he's from Cleveland, yeah, But
never liked him, never liked him, never
liked him. You're not from here. You get that in Pittsburgh too. But Stan was a consummate professional, knew his sports, his Pittsburgh sports inside and out. And when I got to Pittsburgh, I met him, and I knew who he was because I'd had him on the show a few times around Pittsburgh-related things. And met him back in 2005 when we did the Super Bowl back in Detroit. And not that just in conversation, you talk about we had something in common. We were the guy that wasn't from there. We didn't grow up there. We didn't, we hadn't run into Franco Harris in a pizzeria or some other guy in some place. But Stan said, hang in there. You got personality, which Stan had, and you know what you're talking about. So between the two, it was a nice gesture when I was new in town and didn't think I had a friend in the place. It was really a nice, and I struggled. We talked about this when I first got to Pittsburgh. I struggled there. And, Stan was a guy who, took the time a couple of times when we met just to encourage me. And he passed away the other, I think, Tuesday. He had cancer and was fighting it, but lost. As often happens, cancer won.
Yeah.
But his memory, a guy is good when the coach of the football team, Mike Tomlin, opens up his post-practice press conference talking about you. That's when you've accomplished something. And Stan did that. Plus, he was a gentleman. He conducted himself as a gentleman, not only off the air, but on the air as well. He wasn't a loud, get in your face kind of guy. He's what's missing from sports talk day. He listened to people. He had a conversation with people, not just I know everything and what I say is right. He listened to people. When you listen to his show, wasn't a great looking guy or anything like that, but was doing TV. Wasn't the smartest stats guy in the world, but knew a baseball player or a football player or a hockey player, and was involved in his community. He was a great guy, and we need more in our business like him, not less. So Stan, rest in peace. Love the show. That was his Twitter handle was Stan. Love the show.
Excellent.
He was a good guy, and the sports world in Pittsburgh is a little less today will be because Stan is gone. So if you want to learn how to do sports talk, go find yourself a couple of tapes of the Stan Savran's show, and listen to him, and you'll learn how to do it the right way. Maybe not the way they do it today, but you'll learn how to do it the right way.
In the meantime, Vinnie and I are going to be working the day shift out of Bunko, so we'll see you down there.
Yeah. My partner is Michael Knight. My name is Vinnie. I carry a microphone. Mikey, I will catch up with you on Friday.
I just want to remind everyone, this show started with the question, how did you get to school in the 6th grade? That's all you need to know about this show. An hour later, here we are.
We've gone through a ton of topics, each one of them somewhat interesting and somewhat, I don't know. And except for short little 2 minutes in the middle, we didn't talk about it from outer space.
No, we didn't even give him 2 minutes.
We didn't even give him 2 minutes. And you know what? If the rest of the media did that, it'd be a better country.
Then we would all have to work the day shift in the Bunko squad because there'd be no television commentary.
There'd be no Bunko.
By the way, as a resident of LA County, I can tell you that there's still Bunko around here to be dealt with.
Yes. Bunko, 3-card mon, all of these scams. That's what we ought to do. Remember, we used to do All My Seahawks. Maybe you and I ought to do an episode of Dragnet with the Jack Webb goes after Donald Trump. That'd be pretty funny.
I like that. I like that. Like the idea of, especially during the interrogation part. That's the part I can't wait to get to.
We were working political bunko. The boss is Captain Jones. My name is Friday. I carry a badge.
The funny thing about the boss, he always tells you who his commander is, but you don't interact with him. Then it's the commander's not there going, Friday, I told you. No. Nobody.
See, in the earlier shows, you do. In the earlier shows, there was one where he was talking to his commander, and I guess the commander, the lieutenant's daughter was getting married the next day, so they were trying to figure out what to get her for a wedding present.
And what did they get her?
In the early ones, I think they had more reaction, but maybe people just, we don't want to see that. We want to see blood and crime, and I don't know.
They want to see the grandma be interrogated. They want to see Friday just nodding.
Yeah.
He came in, he took everything I owned. And he didn't have to, but he broke the vase. And Friday just going,
The best one was They had this one where these thieves are taking everybody's furniture out of the house. They're figuring out who goes on vacation, and then they're pulling up with a moving van and they're taking all the stuff out of the house. And so they go to question the next door neighbor, and the woman, the next door neighbor, Friday and Smith walk in, and she makes them rearrange the furniture before she'll talk to them.
I'm so glad you guys are here. Could you bring that ottoman?
It's exactly, well, why don't you have a seat over there? And Friday looks and there's nothing there. And she's, oh, yes, well, you're going to have to move this chair over there and move that chair here and move this. Now that makes it better. Now we can converse. So they sit down and Friday. And then they get up and she says, all right, now we got to move all the furniture back.
The way Friday would ask a question, she'd say, we're going to move this couch and I want it over there. And he would look at her and just go, ma'am? Like, what?
Like, can you repeat that? I didn't hear that the first time.
Ma'am?
I heard it. I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
All right, man. I'll catch up with you on Friday if the Lord's willing and the creek don't rise, pal.
It'll be a freaky Friday. It'll be fractious.
Could it be more freakier than this?
Oh, today was art.
It was.
Pulling a reasonably well-trained rabbit out of a old black hat.
I have an untrained hat.
Yes, that hat needs training.
All right.
I haven't got time because I'm working the day shift.
Peace, love, and batch 714, man.
What a wine. Later on,
see you, Mikey. Thank you all for listening, too. Appreciate it. We'll see you on Friday morning.